Hello and welcome to the big picture. The monsoon session of the parliament, which has witnessed continuous disruptions, has led to some unsavory actions. The Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan yesterday, after several rounds of warning and pleadings, finally took the ultimate step of suspending 25 members of the Congress for 5 days. Though this is not the first time Parliament has witnessed suspensions of MPs, this time around it has taken a different dimension. While the Speaker says that she was forced to take this step and that it would do good for the Parliament in the future, the Congress leaders calls it a dark day for democracy. We will discuss today that considering the circumstances that the Parliament finds itself in, if suspending members would ensure return of normalcy and smooth functioning of the Parliament. What are the options before the presiding officers when there is continuous disruptions, and what's the onus of the government to ensure smooth functioning? We will discuss all this today with Manishankar Iyer, Congress MP in the Rajya Sabha, Dr. Sambit Patra, National Spokesperson of the BJP, and Vinod Sharma, Political Editor, Hindustan Times. Welcome to all of you. Manishankar Iyer, what was the options actually left with the Lok Sabha Speaker after 2 weeks of these kind of disruptions happening? Do you think there was any other option that she could, she could exercise?
Well, the step that she has taken is only going to prolong disruptions. If she actually believed that by suspending these 25 MPs for 5 days, going to restore order in the House, I'm afraid she's mistaken. I have been in the Rajya Sabha for the better part of the last 5.5 years. And most of it was when the UPA 2 was in office and the BJP was in opposition. And it was the BJP that continuously disrupted the proceedings. And eventually, we were faced with a situation when just 2 Telugu Desam MPs were holding up the House. They were holding it up for an entire winter session. And when the chair asked whether the chair could suspend 2 of these MPs, it was Arun Jaitley and the BJP in the Rajya Sabha that insisted that no such action could be taken. Now, one would expect some element of consistency in the attitude of the BJP. They say one thing when they're in opposition, they say another when they are not. And therefore, when we see them behaving in this manner, that they are not following their own injunction, which is that people who are trapped in controversy with incontrovertible evidence before them should step aside, at least to allow an investigation or an inquiry as appropriate to take place, and then a decision to be taken. For a minister to step aside for a while doesn't mean that that person has to remain out of office forever. If the person's name is cleared, then he or she can always resume office.
Okay. Dr. Sambit Patra, that is the question. The question is that, as Manishankar Iyer says, but that if suspensions mean that you can restore order in the House, that is fine, but it is not going to restore order in the House. We have seen it today also.
Number one, I mean, as far as the wisdom of the chair or the speaker is concerned, I am no one to question the wisdom, and whatever the speaker has done by the rule book. And well, yes, we all have been observing the parliament since long. Definitely the other counterparts in this panel are more senior to me, and they're parliamentarians. They have seen the parliament more. But as a child and as a young man, I've also seen the parliament, but I've never seen placards being put in front of the answering ministers. And this was a warning which was unheeded by the Congress participants who were doing so. As far as this gumption that the Bharatiya Janata Party had been restoring to such kind of disruption in the past, so we would also follow the same rule. I believe this is a kindergarten phenomenon, like answer, that you were doing so. You had a lunch box when the last recess, so I'll have your lunch box this time. The parliament does not function this way. And with a serious note, I would say, but whenever the Bharatiya Janata Party was quote-unquote disrupting the parliament then, we had been debating on admitted facts. The CAG's report was there on table, the CVC was there, the CBI had registered FIRs, and still they were not ready to constitute a JPC, and that's the reason as to why we were going into a so-called disruption. Over here, we want the first day of the parliament. Look at the first day. Anand Sharma ji wanted a debate over the matter as per rule number 267. The next moment, Arun Jaitley gets up and says that, well, yes, let's suspend everything, and as per the demand of the opposition, let's go directly to what they want to discuss. Let Sushma Swaraj stand and answer. They changed goalpost. When what they were demanding was accepted, they changed goalpost. Let me end by last 10 seconds. When disruption is what the aim is, then who can prevent?
Who can prevent the actions? Vinod Sharma? Is that the way it should be? See, let us be clear. This is not the first time suspensions have taken place. During the UPA rule, they had to suspend their own Congress, their own members. Their own members were suspended twice. Telugu Desam members were suspended. Similar kind of situation which we witnessed there. So this is not the first time it's happening.
I have a different take on this rule, which indeed is there. For instance, I'd say that, there is a death penalty in India, but it's excised in the rarest of rare cases. Similarly, there is a law of contempt, which many jurists say should be used as a shield rather than a sword. So my point is that this rule is there, but it should be seldom exercised. Now you'd ask why. My short answer to that is, taking the instant case without passing a value judgment, 27 members of parliament have been suspended for 5 days.
25.
Block.
25.
Block. 25. So, for 5 days, people of 25 Lok Sabha constituencies in the Lok Sabha do not have a representation. Now, this is a moral and political question which the political class of this country has to jointly address. I personally believe that this exercise of power by the Speaker will be legitimate if there are 1 or 2 members who are holding the House proceedings to ransom. I remember the case of Anand Mohan Singh, who was named by Speaker Balayogi to be marshalled out of the House, and while being marshalled out he was agitating and even hurt himself when he had to be admitted to a hospital. And this was many years ago, and I reported that, and there was a notice of contempt by Anand Mohan Singh against me because I had written that he was found in possession of a weapon when his clothes were being changed in the hospital. Well, of course, Speaker Balayogi, I can now disclose, was himself the source of the information.
Right.
So there was no harm done to me. But may I say one thing? That democracy is a functional anarchy. It's there is no democracy without chaos, and there is no democracy without disruption. If I were the government of the day, I would say that I could have pinioned the Congress on the issue of a discussion on terrorism and the talks, and while terrorism was happening, why talks with Pakistan. I could have done that. And I think that the Congress was wrong when it was predicating the discussion on an intervention by the Prime Minister. My personal reading of the situation is that if a full-fledged debate happens in both houses, it is inconceivable that the Prime Minister would not participate.
Exactly.
If he would not participate, he would seem to be running from the issue. So there were issues on which the government could have persuaded or even placed the opposition under duress to participate. But the way they had to approach it, that was the question. And I think here, as they say, it takes 2 to tango, it has taken 2 to disruption.
It's taken 2 to disruption. I think we have Pawan Verma of the JDU on the phone line, because we're not getting his video right now. I think Pawan, can you hear me? Okay, I think there's still a problem there. Manishankar Iyer, Sambit Patra says that the Congress has been shifting goalposts. You started off with a particular demand, and then you moved your goalpost. Hasn't that also resulted in this kind of an impasse? That why don't you, as Vinod Sharma says, start discussion, get the Prime Minister to say whatever he has to say, and then take future action?
Instead of giving you an answer myself, let me quote Sushma Swaraj, 11th May 2013. This is a Twitter she sent, what do you call it? A tweet she sent out. The resignation of the 2 ministers shows that our demand for their resignation was justified and the government was unnecessarily adamant. If they had accepted our demand for their resignations earlier, the parliament session could have gone on. Now there you are. It is she herself who says that if there is a demand made for resignations, and the demand for the resignation of Sushma Swaraj was not made after Arun Jaitley accepted the challenge to debate the issue. For 1 month now, the Congress, ever since the story came out around the 20th of June, has been demanding the resignation of Sushma Swaraj. So there's nothing new about it, and there's no changing of goalposts. It is that Arun Jaitley was attempting to change the goalposts, and we have prevented him from doing so. No, we insist that Sushma Swaraj pay the price for her indiscretion.
Manishankar Iyer, you know, Congress has been in power for most part in this country, ever since independence. Don't you think that, as a party of the, as a 150-year-old party, a party which has shown the way to this country, ruling this country for so many years, you have to set new standards instead of following the standards set by somebody else?
We are following our own standards. I have before me an article by Subhash Kashyap on the Mudgal case. And in the case of the Mudgal case, they set up an inquiry committee. Then Jawaharlal Nehru himself moved the resolution that this House, having considered the report of the committee appointed on such and such a date, accepts the findings of the committee that the conduct of Sri Mudgal is derogatory to the dignity of the House and inconsistent with the standard which Parliament is entitled to expect from its members. Now, in my opinion, we need to understand that the conduct of Sushma Swaraj is derogatory to the dignity of the House and inconsistent with the standard which Parliament is entitled to expect from its members, especially its ministers. So just let Sushma Swaraj live up to her own words, let her step aside, let her attempt to prove her innocence, but over the course of more than 1 month, close to 2 months now, we have been seeing evidence piling upon evidence that she has acted with gross impropriety and has used her public office to pursue a private purpose. That kind of thing is unacceptable, and it would also appear to attack the provisions of the Prevention of Corruption Act.
Okay. Samit, I'll come to you. I think we have Pawan Verma on the phone line now. Pawan?
Yes,
yes. Sorry that there's a problem with the video there. Pawan, the question is this, that the 25 MPs have been suspended. If you look at it fairly, the Speaker had enough reasons to do it. 2 weeks of disruptions, and then members going up to our podium, showing placards. These are not things which are done. So you think that if not for suspending these members, how else do presiding officers deal with this kind of situation?
Girish, let me clarify that it is my firm conviction that Parliament must function, and it must function in a civilized manner. The eyes of the nation, and especially the young, are on Parliament, and when there is such an unedifying spectacle, whether now or in the past, it does no credit to Parliament or its members.
There is a problem there. I think there is a problem there. We are not getting the line properly. Pawan, I'll come back to you. Manishankar Iyer read out what Sushma Swaraj as opposition leader said. Now, why can't she stand up to her own, what she herself had, mentioned, she had raised, she had held, even the Parliament, she was part of the disruption of Parliament when the BJP disrupted both the houses. Why can't she just stand up to her own words?
First and foremost, as far as Sushma ji is concerned, what the opposition sees as an act of corruption, we squarely see as an act of compassion. And at worst, one can say misplaced compassion, which even we do not agree to. Secondly, if you have a point, if you have evidences piling upon evidences as pointed out by Manishankar ji, then surely it makes a strong case for you allow for a debate, go on a discussion, show those evidences to the country will, just a second sir, let me complete. The country will for itself know as to what the truth is, and it's but natural that we will put in a corner. We will be cornered by your act of showing the evidence to the country, because everything is quite live nowadays. People will know what the truth is. Irony is, when yesterday Sushma Swaraj stood up to explain her point, within 3 minutes the opposition, that is the Congress particularly, was sweating. Why are you sweating when the truth has been spoken out? Allow her to speak. Don't hang her
I don't know
before she keeps her point.
I don't know whether anybody was sweating, but I think we have Pawan. Yes, please continue.
Yes,
sorry for that disruption. Yes, please. We are talking of disruption, and we are having continuous disruption of your phone line also, unfortunately.
What one I have tried to make briefly. I was saying Parliament must function, and it must function as far as possible in a manner. And it has to lose confidence both in Parliament and its members. That there are very important bills and other work pending which needs to be done. That being said, I want to make a point categorically that the primary responsibility for the smooth running of Parliament lies Treasury benches, and this is a point that the BJP has reiterated ad nauseum in the past. Here is the situation. I'm not condoning behavior, but I'm saying here is the situation in Parliament and in both houses, where demand and there should be action from the government against their own ministers charged with impropriety, conflict of interest, and corruption. There has been a charge that action should be taken against them. What does the government do? The government says before a discussion can even be initiated in the House, there is not guilty, that they are innocent. Secondly, Prime Minister remains a complete silence on the subject. Just the Prime Minister and make a
Pawan, I think, I'm sorry, again there is a problem with the audio that it needs to be fixed. You're not very audible. Sambit Patra, the point made by Vinod Sharma, suspension of MPs. If the question is whether it's going to result in, why do you suspend MPs so that you restore order in the House? You think this will restore order in the House? One. Second thing is, he raised a very important issue. He says that constituents of 25 MPs in this country have been deprived of their representatives representing them in the House for next 5 days.
No, just because certain MPs have been suspended, we should not question the wisdom of the Speaker. But since a question has been asked, number one, if we move by the premise that the constituencies are not represented in the Parliament, if their member of Parliaments are suspended, then this rule would not have been inculcated in the rule book. That the rule is present in the rule book empowers the Speaker to act in accordance. Secondly, it is not the first time that MPs in such large numbers have been suspended. 18 MPs last time from Telangana were suspended. And if I remember rightly, approximately 62 or 63 MPs were suspended way back in 1989 when the Thakkar Committee report first came in Indian Express before being tabled in the Parliament, Indiraji's assassination report, if I am right. Thirdly, and very importantly, I borrow from Mr. Vinod Sharma when he rightly pointed out that democracy is nothing but a functional anarchy. And he was saying about the chaos. Well, the saying is order in chaos. Even in chaos, there has to be order. The irony is, in the chaos that we see in the Parliament today, there is no order. You have a right to protest, but right to protest cannot be equified with right to disruption. Disruption is different from protest. Please protest.
Okay. Manishankar Iyer, I think he has a fair point there. Of course, nobody can stop the opposition protesting. No.
Has he a fair point?
No,
has he a fair point?
Yes, let me finish.
I wish to quote.
Let me finish my question. He says that, protesting is fine, disruption is a problem. And my other question which I was asking earlier, that what is the option before the presiding officer when somebody carries placards right up to her face and goes right into the podium? This kind of, why do you need to indulge in these kind of actions when it could be done in a more orderly fashion?
I want to reply in the words, the immortal words of Arun Jaitley, an article he wrote in the Hindu, 28th August 2012. He says, if parliamentary accountability is subverted and a debate is intended to be used merely to put a lid on parliamentary accountability, this is a classic case of attempting to put a lid on parliamentary accountability. Here is this lady who has been caught in controversy for the last 1 month before Parliament started. All the evidence of her impropriety is absolutely in the public domain. We are asking her on that basis to step aside, and then we are willing to discuss it. But the government's entire purpose is to hold a debate so as to put, in the words of Arun Jaitley, to put a lid on parliamentary accountability. That is unacceptable to us, and that is why we are using the parliamentary instrument of disruption to force a discussion after her resignation. It is a technique that the BJP have adopted on numerous occasions in the past. They've also adapted it when there has been no question of resigning. In my maiden speech in the Rajya Sabha, I cracked a joke at the expense of Arun Jaitley, who had described me as a half Maoist. So I said that it is perhaps it's perhaps a compliment to be described as a half Maoist by a full-fledged fascist. And the BJP held up the house for 3 days. So, I mean, it's ludicrous of Sambit Patra to suggest that somehow we are behaving in an unprecedented manner. The fact of the matter is that when those, I mentioned this a little earlier, when those 2 Telugu Desam people in the Rajya Sabha were disrupting proceedings, and the chair specifically asked the leader of the opposition, Arun Jaitley, whether he could proceed with suspending them, Arun Jaitley and all the cohort of the BJP screamed at the top of the voice that you can't suspend him.
Okay.
How have they changed their standards now? It is these people who are responsible for wrecking Parliament, and today they are in government, and all they have to do is ask Sushma to step aside, and tomorrow you will see Parliament functioning as very
all
best.
said and done, Sambit Patra, you are getting a taste of your own medicine. I'm sure you have to agree to that first before you can take you can take any objection to what's happening.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That Mr. Manishankar Iyer, my senior in politics, spoke so highly of Arun Jaitley. Let me remind him of the fact that I can well understand his frustration and his party's frustration, because after all, a chaiwala finally became a prime minister, which he did not wish to become. Anyhow, I don't want to be drawn into such kind of battle. Let's have a decent debate over here.
We were not talking of chaiwala, you brought it in.
No, but he talked of it. No, the important issue is what Mr. Iyer is saying is there are evidences against Sushma Swaraj, and the public knows about it, and that's the reason as to why Sushma ji should resign and the Parliament should resume from tomorrow. My simple question is, where the evidences are produced, are the evidence or impropriety against Sushma Swaraj discussed on television channels or on the floor of Parliament? Is there a report? Is there a report of CAG?
Sambit
Is
again.
there a CBC report?
No, Sambit again. You are getting caught. You will get caught in your own.
Not at all.
Because this is exactly what has happened in the past also. I'm sure Manishankar will say that. I want to get Vinod in on this.
Look, you see, we started off with discussing the merits of the suspension of members, and I'd stick to that. I'm not going to get into a partisan debate over Sushma, though I feel that, and I may point out to Sambit, and I pointed out to someone extremely close to Sushma ji, whom I have great regard for, that, currently there is a debate underway in the United States over Hillary Clinton having a personal email while she was Secretary of State. Now, that is the yardstick. In this country, conflict of interest is not given the kind of importance it should vis-a-vis the political class. But that apart, it applies to all.
Yeah.
I am on a simple issue. What I saw, I mean, there are earlier instances vis-a-vis the Telangana members of Parliament, and of course,
the Congress members of Parliament.
Samit is right, that 89, when
yes.
The Thakkar Commission report. And who were the people who were suspended in 89?
It was the BJP people.
So, may I say one thing? This kind of mass suspension of members of Parliament, I call it a democratic purge. short of, I mean, not an exact meaning of purge as we understand it in the context of China or other countries, but it is a democratic purge. And you know what? The parliament today was looking like the Delhi Assembly. Now, is that the way we want to run
That
parliament?
is exactly the point.
You see, the point is that, no. And when the Women's Reservation Bill was passed by Rajya Sabha, and in the Lok Sabha, Sushma ji herself said that she would not like the bill to be introduced or considered, even if one person is marshalled out of the House. Now, I think at that point in time, Sushma was right. Sushma ji was right. But why has Sumitra ji done it? Is there any such, is there any major bill under consideration in the House today? Can you pass GST? Can you pass the land bill? Which are the major legislation you want to pass? And when you have, the majority still remaining in the Rajya Sabha of the Congress, where the chair people are not going to oblige you the way, I'm sorry to say, Sushma ji has acted. I'm not saying she's obliged anyone. She acted in her own discretion. I have full regard for the Speaker. But I disagree with her action, for the simple reason that it runs counter to the perception highest temple of democracy should function.
That is the issue. As Manishankar Iyer right in the beginning said, is this action going to lead to better functioning of the House? So you say that the Speaker acts independently. That is fine. We all agree to that. But as a government which knows that this kind of action may not help it in running the House smoothly, don't you think the government also has some responsibility to ensure that some kind of a solution is found instead of suspending
No, definitely
members?
the government has responsibility, and in fact in a democracy it is the responsibility of the government to see to it that the parliament functions. And as a famous saying goes in the Westminster system, that the opposition should have the say, but the government should have its way. But the problem over here is what I have been stating right from the beginning, that if the opposition's sole aim is disruption, then who will see to it that work starts taking place in Parliament?
Okay.
And it is quite clear, I'll tell you very frankly, the Congress also today knows that if the GST is passed and the country's GDP moves ahead by 2 to 3%, then the GDP of Congress would be reduced by 2 to 3%. And that's the reason as to why they don't want to see that.
We don't want to go to such extent, when the GDP
This is the
go
truth.
up. That is not
This is the perception that the people can understand.
Just, let us not get into rhetoric on this.
In the previous Lok Sabha, in the previous Lok Sabha, I saw no cogent reason for which the BJP was blocking the accord with Bangladesh. For what reason? But they blocked it because, this is what political parties do. They do certain things to deny each other credit.
Manishankar Iyer, very quick last words to you. Now that this has happened, you think that the Congress and the government can sit together, the opposition parties and the government can sit together and work out something and ensure smoother functioning of the House? Or you think that this session is going to be a washout the way it has been so far?
We sat together with them yesterday and the Prime Minister insulted everybody by not turning up. Rajnath Singh says that the NDA is not the UPA. What does he mean? What does he mean except that they will adamantly refuse to allow the resignation of their people after they are charged with the kind of charges that there are against Shivraj Singh Chauhan, against Vasundhara Raje, and of course more germanely for our House against Sushma Swaraj?
Okay.
The fact of the matter is that the ball is entirely in the government's court.
Okay.
Either they act to allow Parliament to function. Our aim is not disruption. Our aim is the restoration of the decorum and dignity of the House.
Okay, I think on that note we'll need to end. But 25 MPs suspended. Whether it will result in smoother functioning. From the discussion today, it doesn't look like that, but we'll have to wait and watch what will happen. But these are very unfortunate things which we are all witnessing. We'll keep watching what will happen. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.